जेके टेक और इन्वेनियम में आपसे समझौता हुआ एआई आधारित डिजिटल ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन समाधान उपलब्ध कराया जाएगा। वहीं डेटा पारदर्शिता, ब्लॉकचेन और एआई का लाभ उठाकर वैकल्पिक निवेश का भी भरोसा दिया जाएगा। यह समझौता वर्ल्ड लेवल पर दोनों कंपनियों को लाभान्वित करेगा। दिल्ली से कुलवंत कौर के साथ बंसीलाल की रिपोर्ट ओपन वॉइस से देखिए।
This joint development integrates GENex IP enhancing India's capabilities around structured data and utilizes GENex advanced engineering capabilities with INVENIAM's private market data operations orchestration.
Increase liquidity in these private markets. Today, there is a cliff between the public markets and the private markets. And that cliff, that yield cliff, the cost of money, the access to liquidity for private markets is substantially different than that of public markets. The primary differentiator between public markets and private markets is the access to data that is reliable and trustworthy. The utilization of AI and blockchain as a mechanism integrated together to understand the condition of an asset in real time so that you can not only understand the performance of the asset, you can understand the value of the asset, then you can understand the impact on the entire capital stack, the debt, every piece of mezzanine debt, every piece of equity that's there. So not only can you understand it, you can understand the asset, you can trade against it, you can borrow against it. And part of this is the ability not to create the world's largest database, but to understand the condition of the asset at the edge. Because these assets at the edge are getting more powerful.
And on the retail consumer side, the first one is how can you enhance the sales? That is one important piece out there. The second is the customer experience. And third is, I would say, operations and supply chain management. That's the third piece of it. However, the one important piece that even Pat talked about was the security part. So there are scenarios where we have used our GENex platform to figure out how is a fraud happening on a typical retail scenario. Let's say if there are 5 people doing some e-commerce transactions, how can that particular, I'm using some specific technology word, a spatial relationship, I would say, to figure out those 5 customers are creating a fraud. They're creating a scenario of a fraud. So those are some of those things that we have been able to kind of use our Jiva platform.
Umbrella for IT information technology. That's new technology. What the game changer union plan for investment and liquidity money for another party? What your plan for liquidity money and investment money?
So the primary driver of the incremental liquidity into private markets is understanding the data. And the longest piece of the transaction in any private market transaction is the diligencing of the assets. So if we can shorten that, which is the longest piece of the transaction cycle globally, we can speed those transactions through at a much greater pace. But not only that, when it can be understood without being physically present, but you can in a global manner digitally access mechanisms to prove state of asset, prove state of data and origin of asset, suddenly it opens the door for cross-enterprise manner, meaning not just one organization uses their own AI, but actually an organization's AI is interacting with another organization's AI. Both of those agents can only work with one another if the agents can prove provenance of data. Where did it come from? How can I prove it is the correct, most recent data? And that's what INVENIAM provides. And then when we can provide that a relational data set against public trading that Jiva gives us access to through those APIs into structured data, suddenly there's a whole mechanism for those agents to facilitate trade at a speed and scale that hasn't been known before. So we think that this is going to drive private markets efficiency. Is that a good answer?
Present time the market, there is IPO, not total IPO, or more than that.
Of the private market is significantly bigger than the public market. And what we want to do is through the improving of access to data and trust in data, allows smaller companies to access capital at scale as they climb the ladder before they get to an IPO, if that makes sense. We want to increase liquidity and cost of capital by better data.
ये टेक इन्वेंट में जो एक कोलैबोरेशन हुआ है मार्केट स्ट्रेटजी के बारे में और न्यू जनरेशन के बारे में, जो आप क्या स्ट्रेटजी बनाएंगे आगे ये पार्टनरशिप?
सो जो हम कर रहे थे जेके टेक में, आपको बताता हूँ मैं, डेटा वी कॉल इट एज अ न्यू ऑयल. सो हम क्या कर रहे हैं, वी आर यूजिंग दैट डेटा प्लेटफॉर्म एंड बिल्डिंग अ कंप्लीट इंटेलिजेंट लेयर ऑन टॉप ऑफ डेटा प्लेटफॉर्म, विच इज जो आपका अभी प्राइवेट मार्केट है, एसेट मार्केट, that is going to kind of, this layer is going to completely transform your that asset market. आप उससे कैसे एक relevant information निकाल सकते हैं, कैसे एक बहुत बढ़िया insight निकाल सकते हैं, how can you act on some of those things. जैसे कि पैट्रिक ने बोला था कि आपके पास एक asset है, उसके अंदर real time information, real time in the sense like how is an asset performing, how are things moving in the asset, how can you get that information which can be helpful in making your decisions, जो आपके immediate decisions है, उसको कैसे आप जल्दी कर पाएंगे.
जैसे मार्केट में आप ये कहा जाता है कि आपको लगातार बैठना पड़ता है या तो कुछ तरीके के लिए बैठना पड़ता है, काहे के ऊपर बैठना पड़ता है, तो उस बेस पर ये जो आपका जो डेटा प्रोसेस है किस तरीके से काम करेगा, या आपको रेगुलर बैठना है मार्केट में इंफॉर्मेशन के लिए? क्या
आप किसी को बैठने की जरूरत नहीं है. सो आपका डेटा रिजाइड कर रहा है, आपका AI का जो प्लेटफॉर्म है, दैट इज गोइंग टू रन ऑटोमेटिकली एवरी फ्यू मिनट्स, हर थोड़ी देर में वो रन करेगा. इट विल गेट यू द इनसाइट्स. आपको डेली इनसाइट्स चाहिए, डेली मिलेगा. आपको रियल टाइम हर मिनट का, हर 5 मिनट का अगर इनसाइट चाहिए, वो आपको मिलता रहेगा. तो आपको किसी को बैठने की जरूरत नहीं है. डेटा इज रिजाइडिंग देयर, यू विल यूटिलाइज द डेटा ऑन योर कॉल.
तो मार्केट में कितना प्रोसेस होता है?
सो मार्केट के अंदर अभी जैसे कि पैट एंड अभिषेक ऑल्सो सेड, there are not many competition out there in the market. So INVENIAM is one of the pioneers in this particular area, and we, with our proprietary that IT platform, the Jiva that we talked about, वो कुछ नहीं but एक GENex का platform है on data. How can we integrate? Because इनको भी आपको real time data insight चाहिए from structured data, unstructured data. हम उस प्लेटफॉर्म से कैसे वो इनसाइट निकाल के देंगे is something that is going to be very very key for that. और उसको किस तरह से, how can we implement that as soon as possible, as quick, that is what we're going to do. बिल्कुल.
What is your plan for implementation for other market and MSME?
The primary goal is to partner with JK Tech, for them to introduce us and bring us in as a local partner to help us roll this out to the